G'day everyone and welcome back to the channel. New series, we are doing Pokemon market updates, and in this video we are going to be taking a look at Cosmic Eclipse, Unified Minds and Unbroken Bonds. Let's talk about it. Right, so starting off we're going to be looking at the Cosmic Eclipse booster box. Now I am on TCG Play, which is in American dollars, and I do have spreadsheets and we'll be looking at eBay Australia. So with the spreadsheets have converted this into Australian dollars as well. Just keep that in mind just so it doesn't confuse you, because I am an Australian and I'm doing my stuff in obviously Australian dollars. But I've got TCG Player up just to have a look at the US value as well. So Cosmic Eclipse booster box, we can see that it's currently sitting at about 521 bucks US, and as we can see this is set for 12 months. So July last year it was sitting at about 530. We did see a bit of a dip and it has slowly grown ever since. I believe it will continue to do so, as pretty much all Pokemon products do. They just grow in value over time. So that's sitting at about 521, and if we go over to eBay Australia, we can see that one has currently sold for about 730 bucks. Now if we range the between TCG Player, convert that to Australian, and obviously what they're selling for on eBay, I have done a bit of a spreadsheet here. So I'll unhighlight this one here. Now remember, this is converted to Australian as well. So we can see that Cosmic Eclipse did release in November 2019. Now the booster box here in Australia will average cost for around that retail price of around 180 bucks. Obviously the market changes. You may pick up for cheap one time, you may pick it up for a little bit dearer, but on average this is what we average want to be paying. And after fees you'd be getting about 638 bucks given TCG Player and eBay after fees average for both. So, which means you'd be left with the current return on investment with 254%, which is obviously very, very good, considering you haven't held onto it for that long if you have invested in it. Now I go over to the Cosmic Eclipse Elite Trainer box, which is currently sitting at about 328 US. Now, last year it started around 300, had a little bit of growth, and similar to the booster box, dipped down and it has been growing ever since. So 328 USD, and in Australia one sold for about 500. So after fees and such, we probably are going to be getting about 340 bucks Australian, which if you paid 70 bucks retail, you'll be looking at about 385% return on investment, which is obviously higher than the booster box return on investment, and that will be a trend with Elite Trainer boxes compared to booster boxes. Elite Trainer boxes do tend to do better return on investment wise than booster boxes. Now we're looking at the Unified Minds booster box. Now this is currently sitting at about 375 US, and as you can see this graph pretty much is just showing that it has just had growth over the last 12 months. Had a little bit of a dip here, but then it continues to grow, and it's sitting at about 375. And on eBay in Australia we had one sold for 605, one sold for 578, and this one had a best offer accepted, which probably would have been about that 600 mark as well. So about 600 Australian. So if we, after fees and such, I'll unhighlight this one here, we can see that you'd probably be getting about 467 on average. This isn't perfect, it may be a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. I'm just trying to gauge an average price. But if you had to pay 180 retail, you'd be looking at about 159% return on investment for the booster box. And if we compare that to the Elite Trainer box, which is currently sitting in the US at about 254 in value, and it has, we can see, started here at about 245, little bit of a growth, not too much, obviously only by like 10 bucks and stuff, and has dipped a little. Comparing this to what it is selling for on eBay Australia, which nothing actually has sold on here in Australia per se, but there is a couple of ones here which sold for about 400 bucks between these two here. And after we deal with fees and stuff, you'd probably be able to get about the same value as the Cosmic Eclipse Elite Trainer box, which is about 340. And if you had paid about 65, which you could have at the time, for the Elite Trainer box, you'd be looking at about 423 return on investment. Along with the Unified Minds, I've actually also seen a couple that have recently sold here in Australia on Facebook for around that 350 mark as well. So that's why I did put it at that 340 value as well. And lastly, we move on to the Unbroken Bonds booster box, which is currently sitting at about 486 in the US. And this graph, obviously, we can see it has just seen continuous growth, which is a very good sign. And if we jump over to eBay, we can see that there has been a lot more of these sold actually. So it is a lot more popular set, it seems like, at the moment anyway, compared to the selling of this in Australia. We can see that 750, one sold just the other day, 700, 600 with a best offer accepted, so probably about 580, 590, 560, 500, 600. So, you know, after taking out the averages between those two and what's selling for on TCG Player and converting that to Australian dollars, you would be looking at an average of around $600 in your pocket, which if you paid the average of 180, you'd be looking at 233% return on investment. Obviously, you could get more, you could get less. This is just an average. Don't take my word as gospel. And then if we compare that to the Elite Trainer box, we can see that it's currently sitting at about 347 in the US, and a similar graph has just seen continuous growth, a little bit of a dip here. And if we go over to eBay, there actually hasn't been any sold of the Elite Trainer boxes on eBay, except for this one here in Australia, I mean. 816 one did sell, and we can keep scrolling, but there hasn't really been much at all. And obviously that one is open, so we won't be looking at that one. So on average, I'd say you probably would be able to get 440 in Australian dollars, remember that, which would see you at about 577% return on investment. Now just keep in mind that just because it says here 347, that's US, and the prices on my spreadsheet have been converted to Australian dollars, which is highlighted up here, just in case it was a bit confusing to someone, because it did actually catch me a couple of times when I was making the video. But this is all in Australian dollars, and TCG player was in American. But obviously this graph is going to obviously give you an average of what the set is worth, what the booster boxes and Elite Trainer boxes is worth everywhere. Doesn't mean that it's worth this much in your country, but the return on investment is going to be kind of in that ballpark as well, because obviously you wouldn't be paying 65 for Elite Trainer box if you're in the US. You may have only been paying around that, I don't know, around 30, 40, I would imagine. But so that's why you don't need to too much worry about these numbers here, but worry about the return on investment as well. So as we can see, that the Elite Trainer boxes do have a much better return on investment than the booster boxes, and that is a trend with pretty much all sets that have been released with Elite Trainer boxes, besides a couple. But anyway, that was just a market update on Cosmic Eclipse, Unified Minds, and Unbroken Bonds. Let me know your thoughts down below if you did like this type of video, and I will be continuing to do one at least every week with 3 more. So let me know what ones you want to see down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.